program wherever you're viewing across the planet. Delighted that you're with us, and delighted we're joined by Olwen Lyner of the Northern Ireland Association for the Care and Resettlement of Offenders, NAACRO. Welcome to the program.
Thank you.
How are you this morning?
I'm not so bad at all. It was a cold journey down.
It's a cold journey down, but
yes.
It's not such a long journey.
No, it's not such a long journey.
You're with us today to talk about, in general, about NAACRO and the important work you do. You're really helping people who are at a very vulnerable time in their lives, coming out of prison back into society again. That's part and parcel of your core raison d'etre. The other thing that's new this year, you're looking at that anomaly within the system where people hold on to their prison record for all of their lives. It's never expunged. And NAACRO believes that maybe that should be looked at in situations of younger people under 18. The record should be cleaned after a period of time.
Yes. Well, just to say, the issue of records, of course, is much beyond prison sentences, because effectively anyone under the age of 18 now in Northern Ireland shouldn't be getting into prison. So we're looking at all elements that stay on your record. That could be a police caution, that could be a suspended sentence, it could be a fine. There are a whole range of disposals that you can get from court that are much lesser than a prison sentence.
You said something there that people under 18 shouldn't be going into prison in Northern Ireland.
Yes.
What do you mean by that?
Well, children are children, and prison is for adults. So,
but they're still sentencing young people.
They sentence young people to secure accommodation, and they can go to other institutions, but they would not be prisons.
Not in
prisons.
I understand that. I understand that. Places like Hydebank.
No, Hydebank's a prison.
It's a prison.
Is a prison, and under 18s should not be in prison. At this stage, we don't have legislation that bars that happening, but we have a ministerial intent that says it will not happen. So clearly, that's a loophole to be closed in legislation that's coming forward. But young people, children, would go to Woodlands Juvenile Justice Centre, and it would be in a situation like that, which is called secure accommodation, which would be different in character from a prison.
What's the genesis of the current project? What made you focus on it at this time?
Well, in Northern Ireland, when we had the devolution of criminal justice, one of the actions of the Hillsborough Agreement was to say that we needed to look at how we dealt with young people who did commit offences in Northern Ireland, and we put in place, and many of us supported, the report that came forward as the Youth Justice Review. One of the recommendations in that review was that we needed to look at a mechanism whereby people who post-18 were in a situation where they wanted to have their records wiped away, could have some sort of a process. Now, many of the recommendations are moving forward, but this recommendation in the Youth Justice, in our own Northern Ireland Youth Justice Review, has not moved forward, and we feel that there's a time to act. We've also been working with a campaigner in England, and that was really the focus of attention on us last week. We had two visitors, Simon Weston, who is the
Falklands
War and veteran, and Bob Ashford, who had a long and high-level career actually in the administration of youth justice in England.
There's two good people to have on your side.
Absolutely. And their stories, while slightly different, are that they both committed offences, what would have been considered relatively minor offences, but for which they got fined or other disposals. And those were somewhere like 38 years ago for both of them. And when they went forward wanting to be police and crime commissioners in England...
Yes, that came up a couple of years ago.
Exactly.
That was where they voted in.
Both were forced to stand down because these offences still stood on their record. And because the legislation had been framed for those posts in a way that said if you had ever committed an offence which could have the potential to be imprisonable, and just about anything has the potential to be imprisonable, though very few people would go to prison for it, that forced them to have to stand down. And Bob, having had his life in criminal justice, having spent many, many years designing programmes to help young people back into work, then reflected on the sort of horrific reality that for so many of the young people, the offence just never goes off your record.
Yeah, yeah.
So you may have gone through your process in court, you've pleaded guilty, you've paid your fine, you've gone through a period where you realise the stupidity or
Yeah.
rashness of your action.
Or done your time.
Or done your time. But actually, it seems like you can never get the stain of the record removed.
That's an injustice.
Well, that's what we believe, yes. Now, there is legislation and processes in place in England and Wales and in Northern Ireland whereby some element of a record may be filtered out. So if you or I were to apply for a job or a volunteering position that required our records to be checked, it might be that if you had one record, that might be taken off filtered out of your record. But if you have more than that at the moment, 2, and let me give you an example of what 2 might be. We run a helpline, so people phone up concerned, frustrated, surprised that their records still hold what they do. A young woman who came to us who had found out that her boyfriend was cheating on her was enraged at this fact and went to his home and lifted a flower pot up and put it through the front window. Now, probably not a wise thing to do.
No.
Undoubtedly, in a hasty moment. But she was charged with 2 offences. She broke the window and she broke the flower pot. That's 2 offences. So at the moment, under the current system, the fact that young woman was hoping to go into a nursing career is unlikely. Is unlikely to happen.
That's
for her.
appalling.
It is appalling.
Yeah.
And in the story that Bob tells, his were 2 offences committed on the same day, tried, and went through court on the same day, and the dual fine was there and paid.
Yeah.
So I think we don't understand that relatively minor, and we can discuss what minor might be, relatively minor transgressions that people go through process for. They're not denying them. They accept their guilt. They've taken that process through, stay around for such a long time, and do come back to haunt you in later life.
You're talking logically, and you're making a lot of sense. What face within the judiciary or within government circles is turned against that simple logic?
Well, I think that's a very interesting question, because last week when we had our guests with us, we met with the 5 main parties, and I have to say there was a great deal of interest in the project we're proposing. Of course, people have questions. I expect people to have questions. We wouldn't be having a good debate if you didn't. So people ask questions about what is minor, and the truth is it's much easier to have a discussion about what is major and what is minor. But let us even consider a pilot that would look at things that we could all agree are minor. And I think we'd talk about the flower pot as being minor and many other things as being minor as well. There are probably some grey areas, and then there are areas where we would never consider it minor, and we wouldn't want to be pushing at that one at this stage.
Even the principle, you see, if we agree the principle, first of all.
Absolutely.
If the crime, the time, done, finished, maybe 10 years to be on your record, but to be there forever, that's a kind of death sentence.
Well, I'd even think 10 was a fair long time for a flower
Yes.
pot. But
I'm not talking flower pot here. I'm really talking about the principle of it.
Yeah.
That you deal with the serious, the minor, the major, the minor after that. But if you can actually, first of all, agree that almost no matter what the crime was, that there is the ability to expunge the record after a period of time on the basis that the person has been reinstated, repatriated, whatever, into the
rehabilitated.
system. Rehabilitated.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I'm not going to argue with you on that one, but if I explain to you just a little bit about, having spent the day meeting with politicians, they certainly want to focus on minor. And the other thing is to know how long might it be reasonable before somebody could apply.
Yeah.
So, for example, if you go through your incident and you're 13 or 14, would it be appropriate that at age 17 you might be able to apply, because it will be an inhibitor to you being able to go to an FE college for some courses perhaps. So it's not just about jobs where access NI, it might also be about how you get into education and training. And we know in Northern Ireland particularly that we have a significant problem about NEETs, young people not in education, employment and training. We have, the worst percentages of young people who are excluded. And many of those young people will be young people who have acquired records. Look back to what's been happening around the street protests and whatever else in Belfast.
Yes.
People will have acquired records there, and that will act as a barrier. The concern we also have with the current arrangements for filtering, whereby a record, an offence might be able to be removed from your record, and with new legislation you might be able to appeal and get more off your record.
Yes.
Is that the regulation for jobs is only one aspect of records. Bob was able to tell us last week when he was over, and he won't mind me saying it, that he's just past 60, and his offence was when he was 14, and he went at the beginning of January to renew his house insurance, and he had to disclose those two offences at this stage. If he didn't, it would make very little difference to his premium probably, but the reality is that if he went to make a claim on it and it was discovered, his claim would fall.
Understood. Hold that thought, because we're taking a break and back with you momentarily. Thank you very much indeed, Olwen Lyner.
Destination Newry. Keep it on. We're back in moments.
OSM Engineering, Chancellors Road, Newry, specialising in PLC programmes, electrical control systems and supplies, electrical, pneumatic, hydraulic and mechanical maintenance. Vast range of electrical components in our new shop, and a wealth of combined experience of over 50 years. Contact us today, OSM Engineering, 11 Chancellors Road, Newry, 308 38778 or 308 38782 or osm-irl.com.
Down to Max for fresh food at great prices. We deliver free to local businesses and schools, and we also deliver to the local area for a small charge of £3. So come down to us now.
The amazing world of fine furniture. McCabe's on the Belfast Road. An Aladdin's cave of hidden treasure. Quality above all. 5 generations trading. McCabe's have it right. A pride in tradition. The creation of value. Value and quality in our beds. Value and quality throughout the home. Value and quality in the finest sofas and chairs. Dining tables, chairs, memorable feasts. Pianos, a symphony of quality and value in a shop that grows in size with every step you take. McCabe's, the Belfast Road, Newry.
Newry Fuel Centre, with home heating oil deliveries available and best price for motor and home heating oil. Contact Newry Fuel Centre. Special offers on premium coal, 25 kilogram only £6.80. Premium doubles 25 kilogram £6.50. Singles heavy slack £5. Propane and butane tanks only £23. Open Monday to Saturday 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. Sunday 12 p.m. to 6 p.m. Newry Fuel Centre, Carney Hall Industrial Complex, Newry, 302 51393. Attended service and cash and carry. Newry Fuel Centre.
3, 2, 1. Destination. You've reached your destination. Go!
Back, it's Destination Newry, the morning programme, streaming to you wherever you are in the world this morning. And of course in the great Kingdom of Newry, Morning Down. That's our new name. That's our new council name. I have Olwen Lyner with me from NIACRO, Northern Ireland Association for the Care and Resettlement of Offenders. And we're looking at the ability, or the potential to have the ability to expunge from the record crimes of a minor nature, perhaps, from the record of a person who has endured the penalty of that punishment. And we were talking about, it's a good idea, it seems a wonderful idea that a person shouldn't have a life sentence of this hanging over his or her head. But politicians are interested in it, Are you far away from bringing home the bacon, getting it sorted?
Well, I think there's still a couple of hurdles to get over for
What are
sure.
those hurdles,
Well, I mean,
perhaps?
we need, I think, to look to see at how a process like this would work. And I think it's interesting that in the south we have a process where crimes for people who are juveniles at the time when they commit them and they go through the lower courts can actually be removed naturally and automatically from records. So there's a model that we could look at. Now, we're not actually saying that that is the model at this stage.
No, of course.
We have undertaken some work that's actually been sponsored and supported by Dell, and I believe you're speaking
Yes.
to the Dell minister later on today. So they are saying, we understand that this is an issue in relation to the NEETs population, young
Yeah.
people not in employment, education and training. But we're also trying to look at what could be even a pilot model that we could look at going forward. So part of this research is looking at how could you define what
Yeah.
minor would be. Now, we have an opportunity at the moment in the Justice Bill that's coming forward and which will be scrutinised by the Justice Committee in the next period. It's actually under scrutiny at the moment. And we believe that there is the opportunity to put in some small amendment that would provide for us to take forward
Yeah.
some measures here. At this stage, we're being told that it's late in the day and that the bill is not quite for that. But we know from stories ourselves that stranger things have happened. So
Yeah.
we are still very prepared to push
You
for the
see,
fact at this stage that with some level of political
Yeah.
will, we could actually do something that we actually believed was right when we
Yeah.
had our own Youth Justice Review published.
Absolutely. You see, youth. We're talking about youth, not
Young people.
Yeah, young people. The worst case scenario, to have this hanging over them for life, they could say, "Well, sure, what odds? Why should I change? You're going to still punish me in 10, 20, 30 years' time." So this could be the authorship, if you like, of a life of crime, of continued crime.
Well, I think that, I wouldn't want to be putting that as a sort of Damocles over anyone. I think there is something in saying to people, if you're never going to be able to get yourself back to where you started from, then it's harder to buy in to all the positive behaviours that we want.
Yeah.
And we would actually see that the process of being able to apply to have that element of your record removed would actually be something that might actually take place in some semi-formal setting. I mean, there is a model of it working in a region in England where actually people go back into the courtroom and the judge is able to say,
Yeah.
that is now removed from your record, well done, move on.
I
And
like
it's,
that.
Yes, yeah, we like the notion of
That's good.
celebrating good
Yeah,
behaviour as opposed to
absolutely.
always focusing
Yeah.
on bad behaviour.
But I said to you earlier, this is logical, it's common sense, and the sooner it happens, the better.
I mean, the other thing that I think makes it very relevant for us to consider, and why we have colleagues from England and Simons from Wales interested in this too, is because in the UK we still have one of the lowest ages of criminal responsibility at 10. In other areas across Europe, it's higher than that. It's
Yeah.
14. It
Yeah.
moves
Yeah.
up. Actually, that adulthood is only where you will actually acquire a record. So we do have some fairly particular circumstances, and I don't think there's any reason why, with a local assembly now, we think that we must just do what England and Wales are doing. This was our Youth Justice Review
Yes.
that came out of the devolution of justice here in Northern Ireland, and it was a recommendation. And we do have more people stuck in the NEETs category. And if this could be some contribution to young lives not so blighted as they are, then I still have to be convinced of why we can't.
Why we can't do it. When the people come out of prison, you're kind of a shoulder for them to lean upon. How desperately do they need, is there a need for that shoulder?
Well, we do provide a lot of services to people who come out of prison. Obviously, they don't have to come to us. We're a voluntary organisation, a charity. But we have resources at the moment where we will meet and connect with people while they're in prison, and they are encouraged then to come to the various bases we have in the Northwest, in Portadown and in Belfast. And people will come to us. Sometimes they will come quite soon after they
Yeah.
leave prison, and we would see that as a very good thing, that
Yeah.
there's a very quick connection for the supports they need, because often there will be issues to do with benefits, there will be issues to do with what they want to do in terms of maybe getting back into some level of training, and they need help and support to do all of that. And in some situations, people's circumstances are really quite desperate. People can leave prison thinking that the issues that brought them there are addressed, and they go back to home situations which have not significantly changed and can often break down quite quickly. And in those situations, we will find people who are in distress and who are in concern, and they'll turn up at our doorstep, and we will then network with a range of other organisations, both statutory, voluntary, community, to try to help those individuals put what they want back into place for themselves.
Do you manage at any stage during the incarceration of someone to engage with them in the prison to say, look, this is who we are, here's my calling card, when you come out, come see us?
Yes, we have an employment programme, we have a benefits support programme that is all about trying to engage people, and we are one of a number of organisations who work in prisons. So others would have a focus on drug and alcohol support, others work more in the issue of family support, and all of those offers are made as we can make them. It's not always easy to reach everybody, and not everybody in need gets the support they would want. But clearly that type of access to people, to allow them to think along with work that's going on in prison about how they are going to rebuild their lives when they come out, is terribly important as part of the whole rehabilitation process, and what we now term as desisting from crime, as you go through and out into the community.
With your intervention and with your knowledge of what goes on in prison, to what extent can prison be, maybe it seems an odd question, a positive experience for a young person who has gone off the rails?
Well, I think there's a number of things in all of that. I mean, first of all, I've said that prison isn't for anybody under the age of 18. The second question I think about it is that numbers of young people who'll end up, particularly in Hyde Bank, but in other prisons as well, are likely to be in for quite short sentences. And I was at an event only in the last week or so, and if you go in for a period or a sentence that's, numbers of months, and you are likely to get out because of good behaviour, it's actually very, very unlikely that anything except holding you there will have happened in that period. And that's an expensive resource, really, just to be holding you there, especially when we know that a sentence that would have provided you with community supervision would actually have been more likely to have had a better outcome.
Absolutely.
So we're not, I don't think we're using our resources as wisely as we should.
We're back into the court and into the bench of the judge, and the judge giving the better kind of sentence.
And understanding what the types of sentences are. I think one of the issues is it's quite easy for any of us to understand what a prison sentence might be.
Of course.
I think we might be wrong about what it is, but we do understand that means going someplace and being out of sight. That we have a plethora of community sentences, and I think at times it's hard for people to understand what the differentiation between that. At this event I was at last week, there was quite a lot of comment between what is a community sentence and what is community service, and they're quite different sentences. Yes, so and there are numbers of community sentences. So I think we need to make it less cluttered and confused, and to be very clear that actually a community-based sentence generally has much more impact in terms of reducing the likelihood of somebody coming back to court again. And that must be what we're about. Absolutely. I mean, the reason why we do this work is to reduce crime and its impact on everyone, victims. It's not that we are completely focused on the offender, but the offender is where you have to start if you're going to reduce crime.
It's the improvement of society generally. Olwen Lyner, the Chief Executive Officer of the Northern Ireland Association for the Care and Resettlement of Offenders, thank you so much for coming in.
Thank you.
Stay with me and we'll bid the people farewell. Thank you for being with us wherever you're viewing this morning. It's been a